Hi everyone, welcome to the bit in between Christmas and New Year where you're not really sure what day it is and you've eaten way too much turkey. It's Friday, so that means it's a no such thing as a fish day. And what do we have for you today? We have the 2018 Clip Show. All the best bits from this year that didn't quite fit into the actual episode. So it's all new, you've never heard it. They're all times when we were just too silly, too stupid. People were making mistakes, there's loads of outtakes. And we'll see you with a brand new episode in 2019. So please enjoy it. On with the show, ho ho. No? Okay, my fact this week is that it might look like Anna is drinking a pint of lime and soda, but that is a pint of wine. It's not.
And this is not a podcast. This is an intervention. Anna, we love you. We're worried about you.
It's not a pint of wine. It was a pint of wine. There was only one wine glass in the green room, genuinely, and Andy hogged it. So I had no choice.
Anna practically threw it at me, saying, no, it's fine. I'll use this.
Okay, none of this could go in the podcast. So according to Old English folklore, if you dream of gathering nuts, then that's a bad omen.
Oh.
There's an Old English proverb, which is, a good year for nuts is a good year for babies.
Very true.
Very true. Can you guess why that is?
Eat lots of nuts.
Nope.
Did people used to think that when a nut fell from a tree, it cracked open and a baby came out?
No, they weren't idiots. No, it's because gathering nuts was like, you could do it undercover as like a way of meeting people of the opposite sex.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so you're like, oh, we're just going gathering nuts. And then you'd plant your seeds.
And there's a thing, here we go gathering nuts in May.
Yes.
And May is springtime.
Oh, so do you think that could be a sexy...
Well, weirdly, that doesn't make any sense because... No, not your theory. I'm not rubbishing your theory. I think it's a really good theory.
Thank you.
The rhyme itself, obviously, if you think about it, nuts aren't falling in May, are they?
I don't know.
Well, in autumn they
fall
come
in the
down.
autumn, yeah.
Right, okay, well, cool. Let's all shame, suburbs Murray.
You do know what happens in autumn.
Yeah,
surely.
Conkers, actually, yeah.
Nuts.
Yep.
There you go.
Right, with half a second's thought, we could have avoided this. I didn't, so here we are.
I think we're all pleased we had to go through it, though.
So what's gathering nuts in May?
So actually, it's thought that it's the knots of May, which is something that they use to refer to hawthorn. So they're just gathering hawthorn, but that could have been a sexy thing to do as well, I think.
Yeah. Did you know that the first ever aircraft carrier was for hot air balloons?
No.
It was in the US Civil War, and they were used for reconnaissance, and it was called the General Washington Parke Custis. It was a converted coal barge, and it had its deck cleared, and it was used specifically to store lots of the Union hot air balloons. That was the first ever aircraft carrier.
That's very
really
cool. But it didn't fly itself.
No, much like a normal aircraft carrier today.
They don't fly on the sea.
They just bob around on the ocean.
Excuse me, this aircraft carrier is not flying at all.
I'd like a refund of my $50 billion.
I've only ever listened as far as the word aircraft. The story of the first nativity I found quite sweet. So it was created by Francis of Assisi. It was in 1223. That was the first ever nativity scene. And it was because, he was the patron saint of animals, wasn't he? He was always shown with loads of rabbits crawling all over him and stuff. In a nice way. And
Wasn't constantly deluged with rabbits and fighting them off and having to kill them just to get a bit of sleep at night. Why would these rabbits leave me alone?
drowning in rabbits. Yeah, when he got up for air, to gasp for air, he said, let's make a nativity scene, because at that time the Bible was read out in Latin in church at Christmas and no one knew what anyone was saying, and he really wanted it to become a bit more relatable for people and for them to actually understand what was going on. And so it was done with real actors, or, well, probably not professional actors, real people. It was done in a village in Italy, and it involved a manger and a real ox and a real donkey. And he, quite sweetly, had a wax model as the baby Jesus, and he tried to explain, as he was giving the sermon, that this was the baby Jesus, but he was so overwhelmed with emotion that he couldn't say the word Jesus. So in the first nativity scene, the word Jesus wasn't said. He just kept on saying, the babe of Bethlehem, and couldn't get it out. Cool. Yeah, but then it really took off from there. And the hay from that very first nativity scene was then taken away by all the onlookers and fed to their farm animals, and apparently it cured them of all their malaria and other diseases.
That's how you cure it.
That's how you do it. Magic hay. Horses can only breathe through their noses. I didn't realise.
As opposed to their mouths.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, of course.
No, as opposed to their anuses.
I don't know where I was going with that.
I saw you realising halfway through that question what the alternative was.
I suppose when you see a horse in the cold and it's breathing, it is kind of it comes out of the nose, doesn't it?
It's always the nostrils, isn't it? Yeah. So don't tape up a horse's nostrils or anything.
I won't.
No. Okay. In case you were going to.
I have to leave.
Churchill used to listen to translations of Hitler's speeches on a gramophone, and he would play back the bits where Hitler mentioned him by name.
Did he?
Yeah.
That's very Trumpy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It is a bit. Oh.
Why did he do it? What a loser.
Why?
Yeah, is it just an ego trip?
I don't know. I regret mentioning it.
I was looking at some strange driving rules that you can infringe abroad in this country, but I didn't realise this thing about parking rules in various countries can get so complicated. So in various countries, but particularly in Sweden, you have this system that they call datum parkering, which is about parking on alternate sides of the street depending on the date. So if there's a certain sign on lots of streets, and what it means is if you see this sign, then on the morning of odd dates, then you're not allowed to park on the side of the street where the houses have odd numbers. And on the morning of even dates, you're not allowed to park on the side of the street where the houses have even numbers. And so if you park in the evening and it's going to be there the next morning, you have to plan for the next morning that it will be on the right side.
I mean, it just sounds like a way to get money off foreigners, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That sounds a bit like that the system in Paris that they have where only odd on Wednesdays, like Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, odd numbered license plates are allowed into the centre.
Oh, yeah. They did that in Central or South America. It might have been Mexico City. And what happened was just people bought two cars. So they bought two cars and they were always old cars because they had to buy two, so they had to be cheaper. And so the pollution went way up.
Oh,
but it is this odd numbers houses thing seems to dictate as well in other countries. In Belgium, for the first half of the month, you can park on the side of the road with odd house numbers, and the second half of the month with even. Which is kind of a hassle if you have to jump out of your car and run up to a front door and check the house number.
It's amazing. I'm 100% certain. In fact, I know I've parked in Belgium.
Yeah, it's not every road. There'll be a sign, and it's a special sign that they all recognise. There's not even any words on it. There's just a random image that you definitely would.
Foreigner scratching his head, giving away money.
Yeah. That's when I went to New York, someone was telling me that the parking is actually surprisingly, if you're a resident in kind of Manhattan, it's actually surprisingly like easy and cheap to park outside your house and costs fairly nothing. And the only rule is that you have to once a week, your car has to be out of the space for 2 hours while they clean the street.
It must be the same 2 hours for everyone, right? Otherwise, there's a poor street cleaner who just every time he sees a car leave has to jump in there.
Yes.
But wait a minute, that can't be true, right? There's no way for 2 hours every week, every single car in town starts driving.
It's not the same 2 hours. I'm sure there's a rota of streets where there's like 1 2 hours.
All your neighbours turn up. Hey man, parking thing again? Yeah, let's all go, shall we?
It's a ridiculous assumption that Manhattan has one street cleaner who's got 2 hours, like a sort of like cleaning Santa to cover all of Manhattan. It can't be done.
I'd like to see that sitcom about that guy.
No, I think a Christmas festive film where he has to do it in one night and then.
Picture if you type on a keyboard and you're typing something and you don't look down. You're one of those people who's got amazing words per minute. So they did a study in a university where they got people to type 70 words per minute. That was the goal. Can you get that fast? And everyone, 94% of the time, managed to do that. They then did a second test on them, which was, can you now write out where everything on the keyboard is? QWERTY, can you write out the placings? And all they could manage was at tops 15 of the letters
Yeah.
of the alphabet. They had
15?
That's
they had
really
no idea
interesting.
where the rest were, and it's all, because it's all automatic memory. Something's going on. The fingers are doing the dancing at that point, and
That's really interesting. That's like, when someone says, what's your PIN number? If someone's, paying with your card, and often you have to go up and say, I need to type it in. You have that, right?
Yeah.
It's like that. Yeah.
it's exactly like
It's
that.
in your
Yeah.
fingers.
The magic is here.
That is
little finger
actually,
brains.
like, this isn't a fact, but that is the worst feeling, isn't it? Where your fingers stop remembering and then you've lost it.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no way to get your number back then. It's just,
Yeah.
it's all over.
You're right.
Is that just me? That's not just me.
No,
right?
that's me too. Because I look away as well. I'm like, oh, come on. And then when it's wrong, you're like, oh, you were my last. Like, this isn't even my last. This, asshole. And that's... Then they say, sir, step away from the ATM machine.
Maybe it falls out when you cut your nails. It's just a theory. Just a theory.
Something else that rained down to Earth was the Earth's core.
What? No.
The Earth's core is made of iron. And the way that it got there, we think, is a massive meteor comes in, hits the Earth, vaporizes, goes into the sky, and then rains down and eventually seeps into the center of the planet.
So it tunneled its way in.
Kind of. Well,
That's
it's
very
denser,
cool.
isn't it, than anything else around it, and that's why it goes there.
Sneaky.
So that would have been iron rain, molten iron rain.
Yep.
Wow.
Need a strong umbrella.
Yeah.
There was another dog called Rolf. It was a terrier, and he spoke through tapping his paw against boards, each letter of the alphabet represented by different taps. So
If you ask them, all dogs are called Rolf.
Yeah. It's a real dad joke, that one.
I read about a Bible-themed amusement park, which is in Buenos Aires, Tierra Santa, and it was meant to have like roller coasters and stuff like that. They didn't end up doing that, so it's a lot of sort of plastic Bible scenes that they've made. So the scale down has gone quite a bit, except for their one centerpiece for the whole thing, which is that they have in the distance with a hill a 40-foot tall animatronic Jesus that comes out from the side of the mountain every hour as part of the resurrection. He resurrects every hour a 40-foot Jesus out the side of a mountain.
But he wasn't resurrected as a giant.
No, but he's really far away, so maybe he looks really close when you see it.
Wow,
amazing.
that sounds absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Do you know where the largest Jesus statue in the world is, just as a bit of trivia?
I would have said in Rio de Janeiro.
Yeah.
No, there's a taller one in Swiebodzin in Poland. It's called Christ the King. It's 108 feet tall, and it has a Wi-Fi transmitter in its crown.
Wow.
Just like the real Jesus.
Any stuff on King Louis XIII of France?
Got some stuff, yeah?
Because he did not comb his hair until he was 9 months old. Well, he probably didn't do it at that age, but no one combed his hair until he was 9 months old.
How come?
And no one washed his legs until he was 5, and he had his first bath at the age of 7.
What?
You gotta start somewhere.
So sorry, did they start with his legs? Or had they washed the rest of his body and then they didn't get to his legs until he was
They
5?
washed his legs first when he was 5
Right.
in tepid water, and then when he was 7, he had his first bath, and at that stage, everything was clean.
Yeah.
It's not like until he was 5, they only just quickly dunked him in the bath, but they were holding his legs, so obviously you can't wash the legs. No, they just didn't wash anything.
So they didn't wash anything. So it was in the time when washing was seen to be perhaps not great for you.
Yeah. His hair's combed. What more do you want?
At one stage, he boasted that he takes after his father and he smells of armpits.
Yeah.
He was a smelly man.
He was. But he had a horrible upbringing. I think his parents might have just not washed him out of spite. He was a very, very sad man. I grew to really like him. And so his mother tried to keep the throne for as long as possible. So he was made king officially, I think, about age 9. But his mother was desperate to stay regent and hated her son. And so she would humiliate him or keep him out of power. So once when he was 15 and he's king, he's in front of his court, she just stood up and slapped him in the face. Just to tell him off. Another time he tried to attend a meeting of the Royal Council that he was supposed to be holding, and whereupon the source I was reading said, whereupon she took him by the shoulders and threw him out of it. So she was real harsh.
That is harsh.
And she also forced him to sleep with his wife. So, well, almost every historian concurs that he was gay, and he never had any mistresses. He never showed any interest in women, showed a lot of interest in men. And he was married off to Anne of Austria, who was confusingly a Spanish queen, when they were both...
That must have been so annoying for her, always being asked, so what's it like in Austria?
My parents just had a silly sense of humour. Anne of Austria of Spain, came over.
Her brother Dave of Denmark.
She came over to marry him, and he had to be physically carried into the wedding bed because he was desperate not to sleep with her, and he was really freaked out. And 2 nurses were there to monitor the act to make sure it happened, because otherwise you could sort of get an annulment, and that would ruin the alliance between Spain and France. And then he ran out of the bedroom as soon as he'd done it and refused to even enter it or eat with his wife or speak to her for about 6 months.
Wow. He had a regiment of Croatian mercenaries that he liked.
Who were actually from Portugal.
And they are famous for what reason? Because their uniform.
Ooh.
The cravats.
Because they wore cravats, they wore neckties, and because Hrvatska is Croatian for Croatia, they became known as cravats, and that's where we get the word from.
Nice.
Cool.
That's so cool.
And he was also big on wigs. He was sort of
He
the
was a big wig.
original. Yeah, he was a big wig. He was the original wig wearer.
Was he?
In the way that cravats sort of became fashionable, he brought them wigs back into fashion as well. So he was thinning in his hair, and he wanted to disguise that. And the surrounding friends all thought, we want to help you out and not make you look like you're the only person wearing a wig. So they wore wigs as well, and then that spread, and everyone was wig wearing again.
And Anne of Austria popularised hot chocolate.
Did she?
Yeah, she brought it over from Spain. And it became an instant status symbol, and they said that only the aristocracy were allowed to drink it, and that was true for a while, and then after a while everyone was allowed to drink it in France.
I know I've said this before. It is easy to see why they had a revolution if they're saying only we can drink hot chocolate.
Yeah.
I'm amazed it took 100 years after this.
There is a theory that there is a bonus track hidden in The Last Supper.
What do you mean?
It's that the bread rolls on the table are a musical arrangement.
Come on.
And if you play the bread rolls from left to right along The Last Supper, it plays a tune.
And so presumably people have done this, right?
Yes, I clicked on it earlier today, and it said video unavailable.
We don't know what the tune is now.
No.
We can only guess.
I have actually heard it. Yeah, and it's a tune that does work. So it's.
So I'm not making this up.
No, you're not making this up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone else has reacted like I've been making it up.
I mean, the guy who discovered it is insane because it's not real. It's not a real thing. He's looked at bread rolls and thought that looks like a quaver. Like that's not it's not a thing.
Did you guys hear about the countdown thieves in 2009?
No.
So these were I think I might have read this in the Daily Mail, but these were thieves that the police were hunting for who were stealing letters from shop signs in Norwich. They did it to 7 stores over 3 nights, and they were stealing specific letters, and then one of them was caught on camera and was overheard saying, "I'm just trying to spell my own name." And so then the police released the fact that they were looking for people who might be called one of these names: Sam, Danny, Alan, Lloyd, Glyn, or Manning. Because they realised
Manning. Is it Bernard Manning?
he'd fallen on hard times.
I once tried to convince Dan Schreiber that one of the lines in the English national anthem was Oscar Pistorius, because everything else sort of seems to rhyme with that. And he was like, "That's not true. Surely that's not." And like, I was like, "When is he going to pull out his phone and Google it?" And he pulled out his phone. He's like, "It's not true, right?" And I was like, "No, of course it's not true." I'm not going to do it anything.
He sounds like an idiot.
Yeah, what a moron.
I discovered a few things that genuinely surprised me about both ears and what we can hear and what we can't hear. So first thing that shocked me is that when we're asleep, our ears are still listening. Isn't that weird?
Well, how do you think loud noises wake you up? Just thought you went deaf and
She's
blind.
got you there, pal.
I assumed that was some sort of like secret knock to let in. Like, it's just, if it's at a certain loudness, then maybe then you get woken up. But I did genuinely think that when you went to sleep, you sort of just shut down, and your ears kind of just went, okay, I'm taking the night off as well.
Really?
And
You are alone in thinking that, I think.
Yeah.
really? So let's move on to my next amazing fact. Apparently, when this is a noise that we can't hear that we make on our own. When you rub your forefinger and your thumb together, you make an ultrasonic signal.
Oh, yeah.
That
really?
is so it works so clearly that people often use it to detect whether a bat detector is working.
Yeah.
So you rub it against a bat detector, and that will give you a signal. So anyone listening, I'm doing it now. If you just go to your bat detector, and I wonder if over a podcast I can set it off.
Well, do you know that's...
Anna.
I'm so sorry.
Do you, I mean,
James.
Sorry, what is a bat detector?
Yeah.
Who has bat detectors?
People with bats.
What is it? What do you mean a bat detector? Something that's detecting the ultrasonic sounds of bats, like a scientific instrument.
Yeah.
Must be.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's...
Dan, for the listener at home, Dan has been rubbing his finger and thumb by the mic for about 30 seconds now.
And if I could get
And your home will be full of bats.
Did you know that Laughing Cow is Comté cheese?
What do you
Which
mean?
I love.
Sorry, I don't know Comté.
Oh,
Is that a
maybe
soft cheese?
No, maybe this is just a thing that we have in my family because I love it. It's like really creamy, nice European cheese.
I don't think your family are the only people who've heard. I don't think there's a special Tuzinski family cheese.
It's cheese.
Wow.
It was a hard one, and I tried it, and it didn't work out.
What about Tuzinski?
Yeah, that's the obvious.
Shit.
The Great Pigeon Race Disaster was something that Anna posted about on the QI boards a few years ago, and that I read
Yeah.
about. Do you remember that?
I love it. I couldn't believe
It's
I've never
amazing.
mentioned it before when all the pigeons disappeared because there's an extremely famous pigeon race. Sorry, extremely famous among pigeon fanciers. And it's between Paris and London, isn't it? Or it's
Yeah.
between France and the UK.
France and UK, yeah.
And it was in the 80s or 90s?
It was from Nantes to the UK, to the people's homes in the UK. And yeah, there were 60,000 pigeons taking part, and 90% of them disappeared.
And no, it never
one
happened.
knows.
Like every year before that, they'd all arrived
no one
back.
knew why.
There's a theory that there was a Concorde flight that was going over the channel at the time, and that disrupted their magnetic impulses and
Sorry,
confused
what
them.
year were we in?
97.
Oh, okay.
So quite recently.
yeah.
And there was one guy called Tom Roden who lost his winning champion pigeon, Whitetail. And 5 years later, the pigeon was on his doorstep.
Yeah.
Oh, no way.
5 years. I want to see the movie about what happened in those 5 years.
That's incredible.
Do you think he opened the door and just went, "Where the hell have you been?"
Have you heard of Bristol's punctuation Banksy? This is an amazing guy. He was active at least until last year. So he goes around just correcting poor punctuation. And there was an interview with him recently. He has built himself a device he calls an apostrophizer, which is a very long-handled bit of kit, which allows him to either cover over an apostrophe which shouldn't be there in a sign, or add one in if he needs an extra one. And someone said to him what he was doing was probably illegal, going around mucking around with businesses' signs just for having an apostrophe in the wrong place. And he said, "I'm sticking on a bit of sticky back plastic. It's more of a crime to have the apostrophes wrong."
Oh, he's wrong about that, isn't
I
he?
think he is wrong.
But he's been going since 2003.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So he's been getting away with it that long.
Yeah, and
How
also-
has he not been apprehended?
How misspelt is Bristol that he's still in operation?
Is he
So
only
is he-
correcting the word Bristol?
Yeah, imagine if he thought that Bristol had two S's in it. He's like, they've got it wrong again.
I think it's not a full-time job. It's also not a job. No one pays him.
But he is called, as you say, the Banksy of punctuation or apostrophe Avenger. So he's got, cool names.
They feel ironic to me, those names.
They feel self-given.
Yeah.
There is a National Punctuation Day in America.
So,
And the CNN interviewed the guy, he's called Jeff Rubin, who set it up. He used to be a reporter. And CNN wrote that he grew increasingly frustrated as he spotted errors in the newspaper. They quoted him, "I would sit at the kitchen table with my red Sharpie, screaming obscenities, which would upset my wife. She encouraged me to find another outlet for my aggravation." So he set up National Punctuation Day.
Oh, good on him.
Good on... Yeah, it's better for his wife.
Sort of. I wonder if that has solved his quite deep-seated character flaws that I'm interpreting from that story. But Whatever he had to do.
They had things called dog dramas in the 19th century, early 19th century, where the dog was like the hero of the play. So they would usually have other human actors, but the dog would do the really heroic things. There was one where the show ended with a dog jumping in a pool of water and saving a child. But what would often happen is mischievous theatre-goers would throw meat onto the stage to distract the dogs.
It's so funny.
Thus drowning a child, but it's all good fun for the audience, isn't it?
So you know the idea of just going back to the Fire of London. Did you guys know that the sort of there's a worshipful company of bakers? It's sort of the union of the bakers. They apologized officially for it.
Did they?
Yeah, 320 years later.
Bit late, guys.
After the legal threat has diminished.
Well, it's never too late to apologise, said the then Lord Mayor of London, who was called Alan Davis. Yeah. Do you guys remember Alan Davis? That must have been only in the 80s.
I remember the guy who was in QI.
Yeah.
And it's still in QI, by the way, in case people hear it.
Yeah, he used to be the Mayor of London.
Really?
Yeah.
No, but Alan Davis. I think around 1986 this would have happened if it's 320 years after 1666. And
Sounds right.
I did work that out, and it did take ages. I was as close as I come to sounding intelligent. They apologised officially for it.
That's good that they admitted to it finally, because at the time the French and the Dutch were blamed all across town, and loads of French and Dutch were arrested, and I think
They're just beaten up.
And beaten constantly. So we were at war, or Britain was at war with France and the Netherlands. There was thought to be Protestant plots everywhere, and so I think there was a French woman who had her breast cut off because people thought what she was carrying was like explosive devices, and it was just
chickens.
Some chickens, chicks.
She was carrying some chickens, and people thought they were fireballs.
Wow.
You would have thought in the process of chopping off someone's boobies, you would find out that they weren't fireballs, they were chicks, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You've gone too far then, you've got to go through with it.
You're right.
There are parallels with our current political climate, unfortunately. Have we progressed? Yes.
Brexit is the big breast cutting off of the 21st century.
It's the horrific metaphor that we find ourselves in.
Wow.
In 2010, in Belgium, there was a guy who was experimenting with the idea of solving the problem of pigeons pooing all over cities. So, massive problem, poo on your head, poo on car windows, poo on your head. Poo on your head. And so what he's attempted to do, and I don't know if this has actually worked, but he's attempted to create a special bacteria that when it's fed to the pigeons, it metabolizes, and when they defecate, what comes out is not poo, but a soapy-like substance. So they end up cleaning your head, shampooing your head, and cleaning the streets.
Head and shoulders, I think.
You don't want to squeeze a pigeon over your head in the shower. So the idea is that
you can't make them poo soap.
It's not fair.
It's not fair, but it's probably possible.
But I just can't.
Where's the waste product going? I mean, there's poo in that soap.
Yeah.
There is poo in there.
It's pooey soap.
It's pooey soap.
Yeah.
I suppose what they're saying is, okay, so there are soapy molecules in there.
Yep.
Which will attach to the pooey substances, and when it rains, it'll be easier to flush away. Does that make sense?
It feels like I forgot that poo has to come out at some point. That must be the logic.
Unless
behind
these
it.
pigeons are just growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually they just explode with their own feces. But I don't think
presents more problems for cleaning up a city.
it certainly does. It's a
But
very
they were-
short-term solution.
This wasn't just a mad gut. Like, they were given a grant by the Flemish Architecture and Design Committee and Ministry of Culture. Like, it was a funded proper science
You would
idea.
go to the Ministry of Culture, though, wouldn't you, if you had this slightly strange idea?
That's true.
Don't go to the science people.
There is a thing. This is another amphipod, this is originally about, and it's called, and I'm going to take a run up at this, Pseudamphissoides incavaria. It lives in the Caribbean and it eats seaweed. And this is another really sort of just a weird kind of defense mechanism in nature. So the seaweed that it eats has chemicals which deter fish. Same deal. It gives off toxic chemicals. But the amphipod, it doesn't just eat it. It also makes a little house for itself out of this algae. And it has...
Out of its own food, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Like a gingerbread house kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly like that. And so, exactly like that. And it swims around with its head and front legs sticking out of this. It's more like a sleeping bag, I guess. It's more a sleeping bag than a house.
A gingerbread sleeping bag.
Yeah, or like a ham sleeping bag. And
like a hammock.
Like a hammock.
And you guys are going to be so surprised by the laugh that comes after that when the podcast comes out. You're like, I don't remember that being nearly as funny on the night.
A lot of pigeons are being smuggled out of Syria at the moment.
Wow.
So, because Syria was the world leading pigeon breeding place, so in the Middle East they say, all the best pigeon breeders are Syrians, and now they're getting sent over the border because obviously it's not safe for them to be there anymore, and pigeon fanciers in Syria can't keep them anymore. And so there are lots of collectors who are going on these kind of death-defying missions to get them. There's a guy who's spent $5 million on Syrian pigeons. This is a guy called Nasser, who's a Jordanian. And there was one instance where 70 pigeons were killed when they were being smuggled across the border, and they got caught in a fight. So, it's taken its toll on the poor pigeons. But yeah, they are really valuable there.
That's amazing. Akbar the Great, who was a Mughal emperor around there in the 16th century, he always travelled wherever he went with his personal colony of 10,000 pigeons.
10,000?
What? What? They're only small.
I can have 10,001 rooms, please.
I don't think they all got their own room.
No, maybe not.
But they could, some of them were really beautiful, some of them could do tricks and tumble through the air, and,
Some of them pooed soap. The whole thing, yeah.
Did he name them all?
I don't know. I
10,000.
doubt it, no. He probably named his favourite ones.
Yeah. That is impressive. Imagine taking register every day for that. Do you guys know what's happened to actually the original manuscript of The Origin of Species? On The Origin of Species?
No.
So it has various drawings on it. So, for instance, it has a drawing of a green fish with pink legs and fins and a bright blue umbrella. And it's covered in these doodles. And this is because Charles Darwin was a really fun dad. So he wrote The Origin of Species.
Fun dad.
And then he gave it to his kids and was like, well, I'm done with this now. I've had this idea. Have that. And it's covered in his kids' doodles.
Cool.
And so
Do you think
how
they
great
read
is
the
that?
book and thought maybe one day animals will evolve to have an umbrella?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe actually Darwin discovered a lot more than he let on.
Yeah.
But, he didn't wanted to keep it secret.
Yeah.
So he put around this story, oh yeah, my kids just drew that weird creature with 15 legs and...
An umbrella growing out of its fin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was actually him who drew it, and he was backtracking on his own illustrations.
That's what I'm saying, is
Right.
that Darwin drew all these secret animals that didn't exist.
Because he thought if they don't believe that relatively plausible evolution
Yeah.
stuff, they're never going to believe in the umbrella fish. Another Canadian thing. Well, do you know what the national animal of Canada is? Which I think is a bit rough.
Not a beaver?
Yeah,
It's a beaver, yeah. I just always think it's such a great thing to have bears. I would have picked that. But it's really controversial. They're not really into having the beaver. It's been debated whether they should ditch it since the mid-19th century. And in 1964, I was reading a lecture that a Canadian historian gave that complained that the beaver is representative of English Canada rather than French. And that means that it represents a pretty intelligent animal on a rather low level who is very fond of work and has not much idea beyond that. So that was his impression of what the English element of Canada had given to the country that the beaver represented. He wanted to
What did the
ditch.
French area want in...
I'm not sure actually. What would the French animal be?
Not a beaver, something with fur that was cute that we would kill.
Yes, a bear.
Yes, a bear, yes. Or a silpa.
Lovely.
But aren't we reintroducing beavers to Scotland at the moment? Isn't that happening? Is that a
Yeah.
happening thing?
Yeah.
And very interestingly, when they introduced wolves in the various parks in North America, particularly Yellowstone, it had this extraordinary effect of increasing the beaver population, which no one had considered, but it just is sort of another example of how interrelated everything is that the wolves slightly kept down the elks stroke moose, and they didn't go as far south, and they didn't eat the young vegetation on which the beavers relied to make their sort of fluff up their dams, their lodges and dams. So they thrived because of the... But miles, 1,000 miles north where the wolves were, was affecting the beavers in the south.
Wow. You couldn't have predicted that,
No, you really
could
couldn't.
you?
No, it's marvellous. It's like a butterfly effect in a way.
It is. That's why we
but
shouldn't
within
mess
one
with it.
system. Yeah, right.
Another Canadian thing, one more thing. Poutine. So this,
Yes, nice, delicious food.
Yeah.
What is
food
it?
gravy, sort of gravy on...
gravy on chips with curd.
That's it.
On it.
Right, and they give it a posh sounding name to
It
convince
does sound
us
like
that it's
Ali G's
haute
name
cuisine.
for a lady part.
Well, the thing is, in French speaking Canada, it's kind of unusual sounding to them because in France you don't call Vladimir Putin Putin, because in France Putin means prostitute.
Of course, Putin, yes.
Putin, yeah. So in France they all call him Vladimir Poutine, and so in Canada they have like a Vladimir's Poutine restaurants and things like that.
Very cool.
Wow.
Do you know when the Queen takes her Christmas decorations down?
Never. She's one of those weirdos who has them up all year round.
No, she waits till February.
Wow.
February the 6th. And it's quite sweet. It's in honor of her father who died on that day. And then they do these weird things when they have their Christmas dinners. So this year, Meghan Markle will be weighed before she has her Christmas turkey, as will all of the royal members. They do this thing where they weigh them. They all stand on a weighing
Not just
scale.
the members, though, the people as well, right? Sorry. I'm ashamed. Yes, they will be weighed.
Great Royal Christmas Todger weigh-in.
So they weigh the full humans, and they then have the meal, and then they weigh them afterwards again to see whether or not they've been well fed enough. That's the symbolic idea of them.
So it's the
doing
idea
that.
you have to eat the most, you have to gain the most. As in
I
that's-
assume
No, I don't think it's a game. I think it's just a tradition. And also, the Queen likes to wear. This is like you say. A lot of this stuff is put out there. Who knows if it's true from their official sources? But she likes to wear the paper crown from a cracker. That's her thing.
Is she?
Quite a nice image, isn't it?
It's really nice. Wouldn't it be great to rig up Prince Charles's cracker so that there's never a crown inside?